Good morning, everybody. Let's have a look at some of these charts. Basically, Bitcoin. We'll have a bit of a rundown of a few things. We're doing the stream tonight. If you want to join the Patreon, there's links in the description below. We'll be looking at whatever it is you want me to look at tonight. But I always feel like Sunday's the crappiest day. So it's good to see whatever happens throughout the day happen, and then sort of reassess in the afternoon or in the evening for us, really. Because normally crypto sells off throughout a Sunday. Whatever's green is usually red by lunchtime and sort of tails off towards the end of the day and getting ready for the markets to open. So starting with Forex and commodities and leading into the pre-markets, and then obviously tomorrow we've got the main markets open. So we'll have a look at those as well. So at the moment we're looking at Bitcoin on the daily below all moving averages, all of them at this stage now, and the horizontal basically 107,000. We really wanted to see a close above there. We moved into it yesterday, rejected from it as well, so that's not a good look for it. Don't have any bullish divergence on this either, so the daily doesn't really want to turn around. Unfortunately, it's not really wanting to turn around. And we had our short signal a little while back now, a few days ago, and that's played, and it's taken us down below the support. So the next major support is $101,000 based on the horizontal plus the weekly 50 exponentials, just ever so slightly below 100, and your monthly 10 exponential, which again, is around about the same area. And you got picked up on these on the last major consolidations as well, so you do have that. I know that everybody's saying that it's all over, it's finished, it's done, it's there's nothing else to be had in this market, and they might be right. Even me suggested that September was would have been and potentially is the peak. So there is always that, the concept that is true, and we can operate off the back of that as well. To be honest with you, so I'm not saying that it has to go up or anything like that. It certainly does not. But at the moment, when we're talking about structure, a peak. You'll never know when the peak is actually formed. Although it does feel like September could have been it. We don't know that it's formed a downtrend really until we close below about 100,000, 101,000, based on the weekly and the monthly. So let's dig deep, going into the 4-hourly. You can see a rejection here on the centre of a Bollinger Band, sort of moving down. Which is likely to take you down towards 105,500. Now on the 4-hourly you do have bull divs on the money flow index and on the RSI, and that has led to this move. If we base it just on the candle bodies on their own and not the wicks, you've had a move on Bitcoin of about 2%. Massive amounts of profits had by all there. Excuse me. And if you go over to the 4-hourly, wick to wick, it's a massive 3.7%. So we are still talking like kind of small moves for Bitcoin. I appreciate that there's a lot of people out there that are really sort of flapping, panicking and stuff. And I can understand, because I hold an enormous amount of altcoins as well. And some of them are just generally underwater. Some of them, they've not been profitable at all. But for the majority of them, they are still very much like in profit, so not massively super bearish and I suppose this is why I can be so like comfortable in the mornings, and not open to all that flapping about. For the vast majority of my portfolio has been pretty sweet. Now, it doesn't help most people out there, me just saying that, but my experience of this bull market has been different, I think, to a lot. When you're holding Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, XRP, even Chainlink, these take up a decent portion. If I'm talking about all of those things combined, I'm talking probably 60% of my overall portfolio is based around those, probably a little more. So my experience of the bull market is different. My experience of the bull market looks a lot like this. And you zoom right out when in doubt. And that generally is my bull market experience this time round. Now, there's not been any sort of huge parabolic gains. There's not, in the previous bull market, I had Matic. We all did the Matic 100x, didn't we? In the bull market prior to that, did the XRP. That was about an 80x that I did from that. There's nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. This is it's more or less been like the stock market, to be honest with you. Holding on to some of these from the bull market beginnings reminds me of when I went into Meta. Meta was a great performing stock really from from the bottom of the bull market, from the bottom of the bear market into the bull market, and sailed this one up dramatically. You know, I didn't buy the lows, but you know, I bought reasonably low. You know, we're talking 300% on a stock on Meta. You know, we're talking Facebook stock here. You know, so you know that's good stuff. You know, 100% a year overall. You can't really complain with that. But then again, you move over to Bitcoin. Obviously, it's very similar. You know, so we're talking value in certain things, no value in other things. So yeah, I'm in profit. Have I made 100x? No. Has anyone out there made 100x? It's not been as easy as it was. You know, it was 100x's were commonplace before, whereas now all you're really looking to do is make sure that you make money. And a lot of people are not making money, and they're losing money. And I understand that. You know, we've all been there. I mean, I'm there with a few. You know, I've whatever I made on SHIB is now not profit at all. It's the opposite. Probably my biggest underperformer is Algorand, you know. So, you know, I feel you, but diversification has always been the key, and my motto this cycle has always been buy into strength, hold strength, buy into strength. And that seems to have held. So I know that might be, you know, that's not reassuring to a lot who are in, you know, terrible positions. But what I'm also saying is the bull market is still actually a bull market. This is a bullish chart, you know, based on the monthly here for Bitcoin. It's still bullish. You know, this is a bullish structure. It's a bullish chart. And the fear and greed index is somewhere in the 20s as well, which is also quite reassuring, because usually that's the counter indicator, isn't it? When there's fear in the market, it get greedy, you know, when times are fearful, and fearful when times are greedy. You know, it's obvious sort of basic sort of stuff. And the fact that everybody is super scared and super afraid is usually a sign that actually it's not as bad as you might think. Remember, most people are wrong, and these markets are emotional, and price is often, if anything, more of a reflection of emotion rather than any kind of value. If we're talking about value, when in doubt, zoom out. You can see the value there on Bitcoin. You can see that it's higher highs, higher lows the whole time, structurally intact to continue generally while being above those major levels. So not really afraid of that. Not afraid of that at all. It's good at the moment, and if it comes down below 100,000, so be it. Let it be. Let it be. You know, will I decide to pull the plug on some below 100,000? I probably will. It depends on how it looks, but it probably will. And what the overall trading landscape looks like, I probably will. Why wouldn't I? You know, why wouldn't I? I've got to take cash at some point to pay the bills. This is my main source of income, by the way, so I will have to do it at some point. If it would appear that we're going to go into a bear market, if that's how the charts appear, then I will then expect a bear market and I will take profit. And again, it would be profit. You know, a lot of people like to think about things measuring from the top, but I'm not measuring from the top. You know, I'm not measuring from the top. I'm measuring from my entry points. Entry points being down here. Number one, quite a lot of Bitcoin's bought around there, and entry point number two, which is roughly around the 21,000 zone. So you measure from your entry point, not from the peak. I certainly didn't buy this. I was buying this, and I was buying roughly around this. So obviously you measure from your entry point. And again, if it comes down here, you know, wherever, you know, you can see where I'm coming from. It's not selling at a loss. You don't sell at a peak. You know, it's still selling at significant profit there. But again, I haven't decided to do that yet, but there might come a time where I'll have to do that. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Yeah, we've seen enough of this right now. We recognise that we're below moving averages here, and the next move down takes you to around about 101,000, roughly, give or take. You know, and it's a slow sort of creep down towards the next major support. This one didn't really have any sort of bounce on it whatsoever. I think there's still quite a lot of people sort of desperately long in with no stop loss and allowing themselves to get liquidated over and over and over again. After this last move down where I was in positions, got stopped out again instantly here on Friday. Again, you know, no big deal. Not looking to take any more positions unless we come down to a major support zone. So not looking at all of that as, you know, something to do here. I think the more people try to long from these potential bottoms, because they are potential bottoms, and they fail to put in any kind of risk management, the more trouble you'll get in the form of price action. Just get liquidated, come down, liquidated, come down. And I think we're just waiting for everybody to stop that, really. Because that, you know, that's a game in itself, isn't it, really? So yeah, this one didn't hold, which is unfortunate because this was a horizontal. It was also 200 simple and exponential. It should have acted as a support, but now it did not. So the next one is down here. And it wouldn't be the end of the world. You have a consolidation here, a breakout target, come down to retest the low, 10 exponential on the monthly, 50 exponential on the weekly. You know, fine. Let it be, so be it. Let's have a look at stocks with the S&P. So the S&P on the daily actually bounced again on Friday from the 50 exponential moving average. Single driver hidden bullish divergence there. Created a higher low as well on Friday. Moving yourself over to the 4 hourly, you can see that it's jagged. There's some liquidation has taken place here for sure. But still managing to break and close above most moving averages of any significance. No death crosses or anything like that over here. We're sort of meandering and zigzagging, but trying to move up higher. Not sold on the way that it presents itself, but it did close green. And I'm feeling like, you know, whichever chart you're looking at, whether it's 4 hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, it all still presents in a bullish way, ready to make a new high. This is for stocks. Whether that sort of permeates the crypto sentiment is a different story, but this is how it looks on stocks. Stocks look like that. Move over to the Dixie, which is still fanning around, but you know, presenting in a bullish way, but with an idea that we could break down lower. But at the moment, based on the weekly, we came down to retest the center of a Bollinger Band, which is bullish. You've got all these drives, hidden bearish divergence on the weekly, telling another story. Move over to the daily. What do we see? Well, we see a slow higher high, higher low structure. Moved into the Bollinger Band, had a little wick down, but still moved back up again. So the dollar could move in either direction, but generally points up. So the dollar looks like it wants to keep creeping up, or at least the Dixie. We completed a full golden cross retest on the 4 hourly, with the 4 hourly resistance here at 98.6. So we might get rejected here, you know, I suppose tonight at some point when it opens. See what happens over the weekend. Otherwise, if it doesn't break and sort of reject here, then we are looking for it to break higher and move up higher. And the next targets based on the higher time frames really are these moving averages up to 100.7, 101.6, and maybe even 103.3. This is not uncommon. We saw this sort of stuff going on before in the last bull market ending. So you had these double bottoms, you reclaimed moving averages, which is kind of where we are right now. You retested some of these, you carried on with a higher high, low structure, but you didn't see a bull market end for crypto or stocks until you really sort of gained back above the cloud, creeping above all moving averages and continuing with the high, low structure. At the moment, we're early on in this, we don't really know if it's confirmed. It looks like it wants to try to make its way back up and creep back up over the next year or two. But it's still very early days. We are seeing the very first reclaiming of the moving averages here. So that being that and it being it, that's what the dollar says, that's what stocks say, and this is kind of like crypto says. So crypto does look like it should come down to this level. Whether it happens instantly or sort of creeps down there, that's where it seems to want to go. You can't deny all the bearish divergence on this weekly. Got quite a lot of bearish divergence on the monthly as well. You've also got bearish divergence on the 3 monthly. You've got bearish divergence all over the place, to be honest with you. And it might be that this is it, that the top is actually finally in, and we're going to start to see moves down and bear markets beginning. But I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. So you've got to look at a chart. You can't look at a chart and go, it has to do one thing or another. It's just like going to the bookies and placing a bet on anything, right? There's always a chance, isn't there, that it will go the other way. Otherwise, there wouldn't be odds on it. You know, just because the odds are in favour of one result doesn't mean you're going to get that result. Just it's more likely you'll get that result, but it's not. That's not how it presents itself. And because financial markets are all tied together, Bitcoin and Ethereum and altcoins, everything, it's all melded together in one giant, huge financial pot. Think about crypto as the risk assets, obviously the riskier stuff. And you think about other things like gold as the less risky stuff, and stocks somewhere in between. You know, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at the super risk off stuff like crypto and Bitcoin coming down. We're looking at stocks coming down but actually bouncing back up already, and cash looking like an easy enough trade to be in if you're in cash anyway, or if you're in dollars at least anyway. You know, over a longer period of time, you're still looking for a 10% move on that one anyway, you know, versus other currency pairs. So, you know, even just holding cash is decent enough. It's not the end of the world at the moment. It looks like a good place to be. Obviously, this is why we like cash, especially when you have a model that fits for the Dixie, which is one of a giant ascending channel, a rising channel, which has always, so far, over this 14-year period, found a support around here and risen back up to new local highs. But then there's a counter argument to that, which is that, rising channels do break down. They have a habit of breaking down. That's the natural state of a rising channel. The problem we got here is that this one's 14 years old, and does it break down now? Does it break down, 4 or 5 years from now? I don't know. This could be the one that does it, or it might be in another 5 years. So it's for you to decide whether or not you want to stay with the model that fits, or you want to deviate from the model, or you want to wait for the model to break before moving out of cash back into assets or whatever. So, for full disclosure or whatever you want to call it, I'm still in pretty much everything that I've got here, and there's no change to my portfolio apart from what it's worth. Not looking for Bitcoin to break down as of yet. I'm looking to see if this next support holds. I personally think, if I had to call it, I actually do think that we're more likely to bounce, reverse, and make our way to a new all-time high, wherever that looks like. 130, 140, 150. That's what I'm looking at. What that does to altcoins is a different story. Not all altcoins are created equal. We all know that. But moving over to the dominance chart, we moved from the bottom of the range to the top of the range and retraced most of it as well. So based on the monthly, we're hanging it in a place that favors Bitcoin to move up. If we're moving over to the weekly, we're in a place which favors Bitcoin to move down. Or should I say altcoins to outperform. Moving over to the daily, we're in between the two. We're not really sure, but it does generally favor sort of Bitcoin dominance to increase. So monthly against you, weekly for you if you're an altcoin holder, daily for you, and 4 hourly also kind of for, because we've got the golden cross which was retested here and here and here. You start to get bearish again once you flick below 58.5% dominance, really. So all eyes on that. That's that, and we'll just finish with a bit of an overview. So looking at the total 2, so just exclude Bitcoin from the market. What we're going to look at here, what we're seeing. So the total 2 is holding up better than Bitcoin because you're above the 200 exponential and simple. So still looking for those retests and V-shaped recoveries. So actually the total 2, when you take Bitcoin out of the equation, presents in a bullish way. It doesn't mean that it's going to be bullish immediately after watching this video, but it looks bullish enough to think that it's not broken down. So you've got 1.41 trillion, you've got 1.33 trillion, then you've got the horizontal here of 1.22 trillion. So these are all areas that you can see a bounce from and even a reversal from. Moving over to the weekly, we're above the 20 and more or less the 20, just almost the 21 exponential, which is the line in the sand. You're more likely to find a bounce 65% of the time, so the odds are in favor of it holding this area and bouncing from this area. So actually we're talking, so this is a bullish chart really until proven otherwise. So the total 2, once you take Bitcoin out of it, starts to look a lot better. Floating way above all moving averages. The wick hit exactly the center of a Bollinger Band, again doing that 65% chance of a bounce area on the money itself. So we saw it here, 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 and then here again. Now again, it is a dead cat bounce as we speak. It's 22% up roughly from the low, and it's held. All other things held as well. So the total 2 presents in a bullish way. Bitcoin not as good as the total 2, surprisingly, but that's the case. and we probably just need a little bit more time to work out whether we are actually still bullish or not. But based on the total 2, it looks good. So actually altcoins look better as a whole. And I'm not suggesting your specific altcoin is better, but as a group, which is what this chart reflects, as a group, this is a better looking chart than Bitcoin itself. So take that for what it's worth. That's what it says. I can't say it any other way. So when sentiment is low, people get out of the markets. They give up on the markets. I've seen it many times before. Seen it at least every year now for, getting close to, it's nearing 10 years, I suppose. But definitely since 2019, when I've been making all these videos and trading this publicly, then yeah, I can say I've seen it every year. Oh, we're going to the moon. You make a video counter to that. I think we're going to come down. Oh, you paper-handed mother. We're going straight up. What are you talking about? And then we start going down. And then all I can do at that point is just say, okay, well, I thought we might be going down, but now we've got to find out where it is we're going to bounce from. And then, with every support is not a guarantee. I tell you what my supports would be. I try those opportunities. Some work, some don't. Some work, some don't. This is just the nature of how to go about trading any chart, really. You establish a support, you look for divergences, you work out whether there's a chance of a bounce, and then you try to capitalize on it. That's all that we're trying to do here, to be honest with you. That's all we're trying to do. And when you've got a series of higher highs, higher lows, and you're structurally still in a bull market, you favour further upside, and so you still favour the bounces. If we were to break down below these areas and to make lower highs, lower lows, then you would do the opposite. You say, okay, well, it looks like we're going down for a longer period of time. What we need to establish now is, do we have any higher term time frame bullish divergence counter to the direction of the price action? And then you try and navigate where your next big spot orders would be, so you can sail up a giant hodl bag. We're not doing that right now. That's the bear market stuff. What we're doing now is the bull market stuff, where you look for the higher low. And at the moment we've got higher lows all over the place, and we're still looking at higher lows. So you are still in a bull market structure, you still are a bullish trend until you break that area, and at the moment we haven't. So long story short, I'm still bullish on the markets, and as fearful as the general public appear to be, I think it's just another one of those occasions where everybody's afraid, and they're going to miss out inevitably, because this is still a bull market structure presenting in a bullish way. So that is it, really. I don't think the top is in for Bitcoin and some of these altcoins. I think the top was in for a lot of these altcoins years ago. My patrons are probably still sick of me talking about it. But again, I've sort of mentioned it a little bit today. I mention it all the time. Price for crypto, right? Or the valuation of a crypto, whether it's at its low or at its high, isn't really anything to do with its value. There is pretty much no value to most of those altcoins. 99.9% of the altcoins, you can't even think about it in terms of value, which is why I always find it funny when people reference market caps. Oh, your market cap, the market cap of XXXX coin would be this price, and that's not possible, because the market cap doesn't mean much at all with a crypto. It really doesn't, because the market cap will be down 50% the next day, on a bad day. It's nothing really. Value doesn't really apply to what it is that we're looking at. What you're looking at here is a reference of emotions, and that's it. So to create a green candle, you need lots of people pressing market buy all at the same time, which just allows for the price to move up, because people are prepared to pay just that ever so slight more than what it's worth, given the illusion of value. But really what it is, it's just a group of people spending a lot of money on the same thing at the same time, and allowing for it to go up because there's an imbalance of the order books. And it's the same thing for a red candle. Everybody's selling at the same time for less than it's worth, creating a red candle. And all we're seeing is just the emotions of the market. That's why when you have these events, whether it's a halving or a Fed thing or some sort of sort of disease or whatever, whatever's going on, it's creating some emotional response in people, and they sell or they buy, they sell or they buy. That's what's happening. You get these pumps, don't you, off the back of someone's tweet. It's just an emotional response. It doesn't reflect the value. It's nothing to do with value. It's just behaviour. It's everybody doing the same thing at the same time, whether they're buying or selling. Trading is different, so you take away all the fundamentals, you take away all of that, and what you look at is supports, resistance, divergence, likelihood, chance of success, and you're basically balancing the odds. And at the moment, the odds are in favour of continuation to the up, regardless of the emotions in the market. Now, another thing you can do is you can take those emotions and you can digest them for what it's worth, and recognise that most people get it wrong anyway. So if most people are bullish, you think you might probably be looking for some sort of trouble. That's why I always look at the money flow index as a good way to navigate any kind of peak in the market on any time frame, because it references how much money is in the market at that very moment in time, which means there's a lot of money to take out of the market if of course you're looking to dump. So when things are at extreme highs, and they keep going up, and people keep thinking it's going to keep going up more, and they're super bullish, and they lose sight of what's possible, which is a big dump. We often think about things in terms of risk, and we look at money flow indexes and go, okay, the risk is high, the money's there to be taken, should we take it? That's all we're kind of doing. But at the moment, generally, I'm honestly suggesting that it looks like we're going to go up, and actually I think altcoins, surprisingly, will outperform Bitcoin on that way up. But does it happen the moment you watch this video, or does it happen, in a week or two? I don't know when it's going to happen, but structurally it suggests that it will. So, will we go up further? I think so. Will altcoins outperform Bitcoin? Some of them, yeah. Yeah, I think they will. Does it happen at 9:30 in the morning on Sunday after you've watched the video instantly? It's unlikely. We're looking at things on a different time frame here. But I favour further upside. New all-time highs for Bitcoin, probably new all-time highs for Ethereum and XRP and other things as well. Right, with that, maybe you'll be lucky. Hopefully I'll see you tonight for the live stream. Other than that, I hope you have a nice evening or a nice day. It's still the morning, isn't it, really? Take it easy.